Are you using OBS?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. You could tell them, I don't know, if we have the Instagram link or something. I don't know. I don't know what to do.
All right. Are you able to see it on live still?
Yep.
Can you grab that link for me and just Slack it to me?
Oh, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
That's cool that we got someone to join YouTube Live already, because that's kind of like, people aren't just casually waiting for a YouTube Live usually. Whereas IG is like casual capture.
Yeah.
Doom
Where
scrolling
do I
capture.
share it from here?
Okay, let's see.
Where is that
Um,
feature? I can't find this.
Actually, I could just grab the whole thing.
Okay.
Don't worry
I
about
think
it.
I found that.
I could just grab our home.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. No issue.
Oh, Clement joined too. I just emailed him earlier.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey,
Alright.
Clemens.
All right. So we are good. And everyone's set. Everyone good. Let me make sure they can still hear us on YouTube. Yes, they can hear us. All right, cool. And we're going live on IG. Checking connection.
And Jonathan said he saw Jean's video today.
Hey everyone out there in Instagram and YouTube Live right now. This is Dan Keynes from Atlas Lens Co. I'm joined today by Obi, Oksana, and Desel. We want to spread some Atlas holiday cheer and hopefully answer a few questions. And we're so excited that the Potato Jet video just came out with Jean, Carrie, Forrest, and myself. Really appreciate what those people did for us and putting the video out. And today we're just going to cover a couple topics, hopefully answer some questions for you. One of the things that we find is often confusing for people is, what is the field of view of an anamorphic lens compared to a spherical lens? And it gets extra especially confusing when you have different recording aspect ratios with your camera. Some cameras only have a 16:9 native recording mode, so they don't have something that's specialized for anamorphic delivery like a 6:5 or a 4:3 native recording area. But that's okay, because Atlas lenses will work on your camera no matter whether you have a 16:9 recording sensor, 4:3, 6:5. Our lenses are format agnostic in some ways, so we just want to cover a little bit of that and try to shed some light on some of the questions people may have. So one of the biggest questions that we get is, how is a Mercury lens different from an Orion lens when it comes to sensor format? So today we have Desel operating a Sony Venice, and we have the Venice in open gate mode. Open gate is a term that just means the entire sensor area. So if you have something like a Sony a6500, which natively records only a 16:9 area, but you're getting that whole sensor in 16:9, we would refer to that as open gate, even though they don't call that open gate in the menu. So sometimes people confuse open gate as meaning like a taller sensor area, and that's only true if the actual sensor is taller and narrower in a more squarish format rather than a wide sensor format. So getting right down to brass tacks, people with something like a Sony FX6 might say, how does a Mercury lens work with my FX6, where they have either a DCI 1.85:1 recording area or a 16:9 recording area? And so that's one of the reasons that we made Mercury lenses 1.5 anamorphic. So with a 1.5 anamorphic on a 16:9 recorder, it de-squeezes out to be a 2.66:1 aspect ratio. And that is the same aspect ratio you would get natively if you have an Orion 2x lens, which has a 2x anamorphic squeeze, on something like a 4:3 sensor. And so, it's kind of sensor size agnostic, but we want to think about anamorphic ratios in relationship to aspect ratios, and how do those two things relate. So if you're doing aspect ratio math, you just want to take your first number in your sensor aspect ratio and multiply that by your anamorphic coefficient. So with a case of a 16:9 sensor, that ends up being a 1.78:1 aspect ratio. So you would take that 1.78 and multiply that by a 1.5 with a Mercury lens, and that will give you a 2.66 to 1 aspect ratio. Now, some of you might say, why 266 to 1? That harkens back to the early days of CinemaScope, which is the origin of anamorphic movie making in some ways. And that was natively capable of recording on a 4:3 piece of film 2.66 to 1. But for delivery in the theater or, projection, they would mat that down on the sides with sound, either optical sound or magnetic sound, making the aspect ratio anywhere from 2.40 to 1 at the widest down to 2.35 to 1 at the narrowest. So you're still going to want to mat that down if you care about being a traditionalist, but if you're non-traditional like me, you can deliver the whole 2.66 to 1 aspect ratio, and most people won't notice, or they'll say, that looks pretty cool and wide. So hopefully that makes sense. With something like an FX6 where you don't have a native D-squeeze in the camera body, you're going to want to use an external monitor. So if you haven't checked out the recent video collaboration we did with Atomos, they put out a video about how to use anamorphic lenses with cameras that don't have anamorphic native D-squeeze in the camera, which is one of the beautiful benefits of the Atomos monitor recorder system. They have all kinds of D-squeeze modes and frame guides that you can use. So if you're using an FX6 and you're saying, okay, well, I've got my 2.66 to 1 aspect ratio with my Mercury lens, but I want to actually be framing on the set on the day for 2.40 to 1, you can easily put up those 2.40 to 1 guides on your Atomos monitor recorder, and then you'll know where you're framing. So you could shoot a framing chart for reference for the post team. You can see on the set where you're framing for, and it really makes it easy and convenient to understand your delivery aspect ratios. So right now, for those of you, and sorry I was paying more attention to our Instagram live audience, but I'm here for you YouTube people as well. So if you guys have questions on YouTube, be sure to type them in the comments, and we'll hopefully be able to answer those as quickly and easily as possible. And so we're doing this sort of hybrid stream today. This is something we tried a while back, and we're bringing it back. It's a way of getting high quality direct feed direct from the SDI port on our Pro cameras, or if we're using something like an FX3, we can stream directly from the FX3 or the A7S 2 or 3 or an R5C into our platform on YouTube Live with the D squeeze, and we can talk about stuff. And then if you have questions, it's so easy to interact and engage with Instagram Live. So we have a dual stream where you're getting, on this camera, you're getting the Instagram Live from my phone, which is an iPhone 14 Pro Max. And from this side, we're getting a Sony Venice camera in open gate 3:2 aspect ratio. Now you can see that there's some red frame guides up there. Those are our 2.40 to 1 frame guides that we put up, so you can see a reference of exactly what that looks like in terms of the delivery. So that's one of the cool things that a Venice has in the menus is frame guides and D-squeeze built into the camera. Some of those things are not in some of the Sony cameras, but shout out Panasonic. You guys do put a lot of anamorphic features in your cameras, and we are grateful for that. So hopefully everybody's enjoying this dual stream mode where you get the Pro camera feed and you get the Instagram camera feed. Does anyone out there have any questions? And if not, just so you know, we're looking at a Mercury 36mm lens today. So this is a 36mm Mercury, which is a 1.5 anamorphic squeeze, and we're wide open at a T2.2 aperture. And you can see the frame guides, and you can see a nice amber golden flare there in the background, which I just flagged with my hand. And you can see that this is a really incredibly wide lens. So 36 doesn't sound like that wide of a focal length, but when you have a 1.5 anamorphic squeeze, it ends up being the horizontal angle of view equivalent of a 24mm, which is quite wide on a full frame sensor, and still pretty wide on a Super 35 sensor. So that's why we like to say Mercury will meet you where you are with your camera, and it's great on Super 35 systems and full frame systems. You're not missing out. You just have more flavors of delivery options and aspect ratios across the board. Obi, do we have any questions out there from the Instagram team?
There's a few, yeah.
IG? No, not at the moment.
Okay.
Are you able, or are there ways to rent the Mercury set with PL adapters?
Fantastic question. So the Mercury lenses only ship with a PL mount, but if you're using something like an FX3 with an E mount or an R5C with a Canon RF mount, there's so many fantastic options for RF or E mount or Panasonic L mount to PL, that we believe that you'll find a solution that makes you the most happy, whether you're renting it from a rental house or you own that adapter yourself. There are so many mirrorless to PL adapters. If you're using an EF mount camera, unfortunately the Mercury lenses don't have an EF mount, but depending on the camera, you may easily be able to put a PL mount on your camera body, and that's true of things like most of the Blackmagic cameras, whether it's a pocket camera or an Ursa series camera, or something like a Canon C200 or a C500, C300. All of those will adapt a PL mount onto the camera body, so it's really useful to have that option. And part of the reason we went that direction is the optics are really optimized around a professional PL mount, so the size and protrusion of the optical elements doesn't really make them too easily compatible with a Canon EF mount natively. And we also believe that both PL is the future for professional cinema systems, which easily goes to LPL. And for lighter weight systems, mirrorless are the future, and all mirrorless camera systems will easily adapt to PL. So you have such a wide variety of options that we're so spoiled for choice today. It's really cool. So hopefully that helps.
So another question: if you need to get the lenses serviced or repaired, would that repairs happen in Glendale?
Right now, most of our service and repair takes place here in Glendale, California. We are building out more authorized service centers around the world. So if you are outside of the US, speak to your local reseller or service center. But one of the things I can say about Atlas Service Team is we have the fastest, easiest turnaround for service in the cinema lens industry, and I'm so proud of our team for making that possible.
Can you talk about the 36 and the 42 field of view, as they're very close together with the first release?
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you asked that question so I can give you some direct answers. So right now, for everyone who just tuned in, we're looking at a 36 millimeter Mercury on a Sony Venice in open gate, and we have a nice 2:4:0 to 1 aspect ratio frame guides up, and we're at a 2.2 aperture. So you can see, if you look at the building, you can get a reference for, there's some milk crates over there in our lighting cart, and on this side, we have, if you want to pan over a little bit, we can actually, yeah, there we can just see where DeSalle and Oksana's office is. So you have that nice reference line, and you can see Obi there. Hey, Obi. So DeSalle, if you put that holiday bell at the camera left frame guide, yeah. So you have reference where that bell is, and then on this side, you can see that tripod case on my left, which is camera right. So hopefully those are good kind of reference point indexes for you. And in the future, we'll probably put some columns or something in here with some lights, so you have like a really easy size reference. And as you guys become more familiar with the Atlas demo space, as we show it to you virtually or in person, you'll start to have a really familiar sense, hopefully, of the dimensionality and size of the studio here, and as that would reflect in your own work. So DeSalle and everyone out there, get a good mental reference or take a screenshot of that 36. And in the future, we'll also do some professional recordings that show you these frame size differences and format differences. But for now, we've got the 36 up, and quickly we'll switch to the 42. So make yourself a little mental reference. DeSalle's going to throw up the 42, and then we can put up the 72 after that, so you can compare again. And if you could just shake up the focus to make sure I'm sharp there. Beautiful. So yeah, we're wide open, I believe, on this 42 mil, and you could see we're seeing much less of Oksana and DeSalle's office over there. We don't see the bell, and the tripod case that was on this side, I think there's two of them, were in a little bit. So you can see how much vertical field of view difference there is. You know, the difference vertically is the difference between a 36 and a 42, and horizontally the difference is the difference between a 24 and a 28. And we're looking at full frame mode right now. So hopefully that's a useful reference. And if you're not familiar with this incredible calculator from Phil Holland, there's a tool he has on his site, which is phfx.com. There's a tool called Shot Prep. There's another tool called Format Compare, but Shot Prep is great for looking at angle of view difference between vertical and horizontal field of view angles with different sensor sizes and different focal lengths. So you can put in your lens focal length, you can put in your anamorphic coefficient, which is 1.5 for a Mercury, and you can pick the camera of your choice and then get angle of view reference numbers that you can understand better. And then he's got this other incredible tool called Format Compare that will let you look at the difference between something like a red Komodo and a red Monstro, or Kodak 35mm 4x film versus Panasonic S1H, for instance. So you can really put up such a wide variety of variables and format recording sizes, and then get a really clear sense of how much sensor size and angle of view for your different sensors is used and different formats for recording.
2 questions. Someone wants to see the 72, and then someone has a question about the highlights. Does it have bloom natively on the highlights, and how well does it perform with additional diffusion and filters?
Super questions. So right now we're looking at the 42. After I answer these questions a little bit more, we'll swing to the 72. And again, we're looking at a Sony Venice in full frame 3:2 open gate mode. And the question was, how do highlights bloom? Well, you can see we're looking right down the barrel at our beautiful aperture. Is that a LS60? Yeah, we've got a LS60B for bicolor, and it's in kind of a tungsten mode. So it's got a little bit of a nice bloom to it, and it's not going right down the barrel right now, so it's not flaring. So what we like to say about Mercury is we've designed these to have flare when you want them, and just nice gentle tonality when you don't. And so I'll ping a mag light right into the lens, and you can see how this works too for flaring. So there's a little bit of an off-axis flare, come offside a little bit. Nice streak, and then we'll put it right in the barrel. So you can see it does bloom around the source here, and then you do get those beautiful anamorphic streak flares that we all know and love. And this is with a tungsten light source, and we're set for daylight on the camera, so it's pretty warm. And then I'll pull up, got a really punchy, yeah, that might be too much, but we'll see. Got a very punchy daylight source here. So I'm just matting that down with my fingers a little bit. But this is a really strong Scorpion LED with a 6500 degree color temperature. And you can see as I just mat it down, it's got that kind of beautiful glow right around the source. So it halates in a way that's like desirable but not overly, distracting or weird. Like if you put too much filtration, things can get weird. We all know that, right? Sometimes you want weird though. But when I watch movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that has such a beautiful halation effect. And I think that's one of the things that we wanted to try to embrace in our optical design and coating design with these Mercury series lenses. So you can see, yeah, just around my fingers, you do have a nice bloom without too much color. So there's not a lot of chromatic aberration. The Mercuries are really optimized for almost no chromatic aberration in the lateral or axial direction. They're nearly apochromatic lenses. So yeah, let's swing up that 72. We could take a look at how a Mercury 72 looks like on a open gate Sony Venice today. Oksana, are you seeing any questions that we haven't answered to?
Looks like we answered everything. Phil is also on the video, Phil Holland.
Oh, hi Phil.
Yeah.
Hey. Shout out Phil Holland. Happy holidays, man. Shout out happy holidays, Phil. Thanks for making such great tools and just being a stand-up guy. I'm daily telling people about Shot Prep and Format Compare, which are some of the most useful and accessible, easy to use tools for thinking about frame sizes and format references in our industry. So thank you so much for making those tools available to the community and just being an overall cool guy and lens nerd like myself.
Jonathan asked earlier, are there ways to rent Mercury Atlas PL adapters? So I guess there's two questions.
So hopefully, he wants to know if you can rent Mercury series lenses. So Mercury lenses haven't shipped to any customers yet. We have a very limited number of pre-production demo prototype units that we're using to create content and gather research about things that we can improve as we ramp up the mass production process for Mercury lenses. Adapters, there's myriad adapters for all the different camera systems that will allow you to use a PL lens. And I would just turn the question back around and say, what camera do you have? And we can help direct you in the right direction towards an adapter that would suit you, either available through rental or for purchase at a very reasonable price. And right now we're looking at the Mercury 72mm on a Sony Venice in open gate mode.
Someone wants to see a flare test at like a 5.6 aperture.
Sure. You want to stop down to a 5.6 for me and turn off the ND for us, Desal? Thank you so much. So this is very informal. Obviously, it's not a professional grade recorded test, but we're going to do it live for you because that's how we roll. So we've got the lens at a 5.6. We're on a Sony Venice in open gate mode, and I have a couple different flashlights here. So I've got Streamlight, which is a very bright 6500 to 7000 Kelvin light. I'm going to turn it on. Sorry to shine this in your eyes, Desal, but I'll start with off axis here. Bring it around on axis. And you know, I'm only about 4 feet from the lens, so I can also step back. And you want to focus back here on me? There we go. So this is a very punchy light, and it's a daylight light.
And then
tungsten light.
Yeah, they also want to see it wide open as well since we changed the lens. So
Wide open on
whenever you're done with the 5.6, yeah.
Here we are with a mag light. I'm about 12 feet away, and I'm pinging it right in the lens. And we're at a 5.6 on the 72mm Mercury. I really love these flares. I love this lens. And we're at a 5.6 just for reference. So now we can put the ND6 back on, and we'll swing wide open again. So this is off axis here with the Streamlight, which is very punchy. I'm sorry I don't have any really intelligent metrics for you about what the light output is on this, but it's very bright, suffice to say. This is a Streamlight LED, and it's about 6500 to 7000 Kelvin. And then I'll go back to about 12, 15 feet away here and hit you off axis. And then we'll swing to the mag light. So hopefully that answers some of your questions visually about different flare characteristics with the 72mm Mercury wide open and at a 5.6. We think you're going to be really pleased with the way sharpness, chromatic aberration, fall off, all the qualities of the Mercury series lens should be really pleasing for most cinematographers. We think it's something we're really excited to share with you. And then after this, I could actually put up a 32mm Orion. We're going to go back and go backwards through the range again and do a 42 and a 36 Mercury. and then we'll put up a 32 Orion with our 1.4 times expander to show this in full frame open gate mode and just show how the field of view is so different with Orion, but still super useful.
So they want to see close focus on the lenses as well.
Okay. Yeah, do you want to put it at close focus and I'll come around this side down the hallway?
And so while we're doing that,
Yeah, down this way. Sorry, that's in your way. I'll pull it out.
you're
A
fine.
little bit. Just a little bit.
Someone had another question about, will the Arri Alexa Mini with a PL mount and L bus be able to pull data from the lenses or any previous generation?
So none of our lenses use a data capture system, but I have a great solution for you if you're someone that really needs lens data. There's this incredible tool called a DCS, and DCS will work with any camera, any lens, and any focus motor system to actually capture perfect metadata for your lens focus position. So check out, I believe it's dcs.com, or just Google DCS lens metadata and you'll see this incredible box. It'll work with any camera, and it'll actually translate metadata between different formats. So if you have, for instance, another lens that has Arri L bus, but you only have Cook eye data, this will actually transpose the data coordinates and give you a metadata that rides alongside either on an SD card or piped directly into your camera. So that's an incredible tool called a DCS metadata box, and check that out. I think you're going to be really excited about it if you're someone who needs metadata right now. So are we at minimum? Yep. Okay, there we are. So I'm right around 3 feet from the sensor. There we go. So that's minimum focus. There's Oksana behind me. There's some Mercury enhanced bokeh there. So due to our optical design on the Mercury series, we have really beautiful out of focus areas for all the lenses. But look at that, way more bokeh than you might think for a 1.5 times anamorphic. And I'm only 3 feet away from a 72 mil right now. Would you guys like to see 72 mil with an extender, because we can keep the same close focus but be even higher magnification? I think that'd be a pretty neat thing to throw up. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to pop the lens off, I'll throw the extender on.
All right, so we got a little bit more questions. Filter threading on the front lens.
Yes, the filter threads on Mercury series lenses are 86 millimeter thread, and the outer diameter is 95. So you could use commonly available matte boxes, clamp-on systems for exterior 95 millimeter dimension. And if you want to use thread-in filters, it's an 86 millimeter filter thread.
Okay. Another one. What's the weight comparison with the Orions and the Mercury?
Fantastic question. So we have someone asking, what is the difference in weight between a Mercury and an Orion? We're going to take a 42 millimeter Mercury as one of the key reference points and a 40 millimeter Orion. 40 millimeter Orion is about 5.5 pounds, and a 42 millimeter Mercury is around 2.5 pounds. So it's about half the weight. Incredible size and weight reduction we managed to pull off, and we have a very unique optical architecture that makes up the Mercury series lenses that we're very proud of. So that's a patent pending optical design that no one uses for anamorphic lenses yet, and we're the first. Some of the most exciting lens technology to happen in the anamorphic world in 70 years of anamorphic cinematography, we think, without patting ourselves on the back too hard. Very proud of the team here. So this is our 72 millimeter with a 1.6 times extender, and you see we have the same 3-foot close focus, but just a higher magnification. So it's an equivalent 115 millimeter focal length right now, and we're wide open on the lens. You'll notice that it's about a stop darker because the extender will reduce your light output by about 1 1/3 stops with our 1.6 extender. And this makes the flares still very beautiful and buttery, as I can demonstrate for you here. You want to focus a little farther away for me?
All right, another question about the extender. So, will the extender on a full frame that we're looking at right now be similar to the same field of view of a Super 35 sensor, such as the Komodo?
That is a great question. It's pretty close. So again, I would recommend tuning into Phil's Format Compare or Shot Prep tools, and then you could actually just take your focal length of the lens and multiply that by 1.6 for whatever camera system you're on, and then that will give you a pretty good field of view comparison. It's fairly close. It's not exactly 1-to-1. There's some different math that happens there depending on your sensor that you're comparing, but it's a pretty good approximation because most Super 35 format sensors are in the ballpark of 1.5 to 1.6 times smaller than most quote-unquote full frame or VistaVision format sensors. So it's a pretty good analogy. You won't have the stop loss though, but yeah, that's a pretty good observation.
Okay. Another question about production. So you mentioned that you're still gathering feedback from some testers out there. When do we expect them going into production?
So production lenses in the Mercury family are going to begin shipping in mid-2023. So we're really excited to share that with you and start shipping as soon as we possibly can, but also hitting the Atlas standard of approval and quality. That's the number one thing, making sure that what we send you we're proud of, we believe in, and we believe will be a lifelong lasting tool for your cinematography.
Can I interrupt this feed for a second?
Yeah. Oksana, welcome. Come on camera.
Hi everyone. Yesterday was Dan's birthday, and we wanted to surprise him on the live feed. He doesn't know.
Oh my gosh.
We wanted to just say happy birthday to you. So
Thank you.
the team is coming. I'll just let them know.
Okay,
Come
thanks.
on, guys.
Thanks for embarrassing me, guys. But I love celebrations, so I'm not too embarrassed. I'm just being silly.
They bring in the cake.
It's a Boca birthday.
Happy birthday, dear Dan.
Thank you guys.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody. Thank you. Happy holidays. Happy birthday, Stephen Yun, also.
I'll get it close to the camera, the cake.
Yeah, if we
Okay.
get that close, focus.
I wish I could share this
said.
cake with all of you out there.
Too close.
Shout out Portos.
There you go.
Shout out Portos Burbank.
Yay.
Shout out Atlas
Shout out
team.
Porto.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, you guys can.
We'll bring it back.
We'll bring it back. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Sing happy birthday.
Everyone said happy birthday, Dan.
Guess how old I am?
32.
Like 32, like a focal length. Yeah, 32 like a lens. 42 like a lens, actually. That's my age. 42 millimeters. Awesome. So I'd love to answer a couple more questions. I think now that there's a cake here, it's going to be hard to keep my attention and keep my focus on this, but just kidding. I'm always here for everybody out there in YouTube and Instagram land.
They want to see the 32. If you want to do
Okay,
that.
yeah, let's do it. While we're switching to self, you can put the mode for D-squeeze into a 2x squeeze, and I'll swing the lens. So for anyone who just tuned in, we have a 32 millimeter Orion series lens, and then on the back we have our beautiful 1.4 times LF expander, and this is going to take any Mercury or Orion series lens and magnify your effective image circle by 1.4 times. So if you're on a Super 35 sensor, just think of your focal length being 1.4 times longer for magnification. So it's great for making your 100 more telephoto and going out to a 140, or your 80 going out to 112, 115, something like that. And if you're on a full frame sensor, it'll make your Orion series lenses cover edge to edge on your full frame or VistaVision format sensor. So we're going to go ahead and show this on the Sony Venice right now, which we have in open gate mode. And just got to make this in there. I swear I've done this before. There we go. And you can see the close focus is so wide. So close for close focus, but we're such a wide field of view, right? Pretty incredible. And so that's one of the benefits of an Orion series lens, is if you want an extreme wide angle field of view compared to your focal length, so your disproportionate magnification for your vertical focal length compared to your horizontal focal length is so much stronger with a 2 times lens than a 1.5. So if you're looking outside the red bars, that's actually a 3 to 1 recording aspect ratio, and then inside the red bars you're at a 2.40 to 1. So that's 2.40 to 1, that's 3 to 1. And then I'll hit you with a flare just to give you some Orion series flavor. And can you just rack to me here? Thank you, to sell. So there's that beautiful cyan blue Orion series flare that's reminiscent of some of our favorite classic anamorphic lenses from the 70s. So I know everybody's really excited about Mercury, but whenever I put the Orions on, it just gives me a special feeling too. So I think these are still incredibly cool and unique lenses in the industry, and more accessible than other 2 times anamorphic options, and higher quality than a lot of stuff that's popping up. But you know, Mercury is also incredibly cool and a totally different take on what anamorphic can be for cinematographers.
Dan, Benjamin is asking if there's anything planned for longer Mercury lens.
Great question, Benjamin. Check out the new video on the Potato Jet channel, where we formally announced what the more telephoto Mercury focal length is. Go to YouTube, put in Potato Jet, and check out Gene and Carrie's video that was done with Forrest and myself and the Atlas team. And we formally announced the new Mercury focal length that will be announced, you know, for pre-order next year, and shipping not too long after that. And if that's not long enough, come back and email us and tell us what focal length you do want for the Mercury series.
Would it be a good option on the RE Amira?
We think that the Mercury would be a super option for an Amira, because with the Amira, you're mostly limited to a native 16:9 recording area. And so Mercury with 1.5 on a 16:9 recording gives you a native 2.66 to 1 recording delivery. And that's great for delivering 2.40 to 1. There's also a really cool trick you can do if you turn your camera body 90 degrees and then use an external monitor that has a custom D-squeeze. You can actually make something that's more square format for delivery, but still have all your traditional anamorphic effects. So if you check out the video by Cleon RA on our YouTube channel called La Sommaire, Cleon took a 16:9 or 17:9 recording camera, which would have a sort of similar aspect ratio recording as your Amira, and then turn the lens 90 degrees to make the anamorphic vertical. So you can do that and have vertical streaks and horizontal bokeh, or you can turn the camera body 90 degrees and have traditional bokeh and streaks, but a square format for delivery. And that's awesome with both Orion series and Mercury series lenses. And maybe next time we'll tune in, we can actually do a live demo of that format, which we like to call Atlas Scope. So thank you so much for joining us for this YouTube live and Instagram live simultaneous stream. I'm going to see if there's any more questions we want to answer, but if not, we just want to say happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, happy Kwanzaa, happy New Year, Festivus for the rest of us. And this Friday in theaters, go see Babylon, shot with Atlas Orion custom lenses, built for Alina Sandgren, FSF ASC. Let us know what you think about Babylon. I'm so thrilled to go see it, and stay tuned because we'll be covering more about that soon. So thank you so much for joining our stream today. I'm going to see if there's any other questions to wrap up, and then we'll sign off.
How do we monitor when mounting the lens 90 degrees? I did on the project, but had to monitor on Swiss.
So thank you, Kevin, for that question. So for those just tuning in before we sign off, Kevin asked, how do you monitor with vertical anamorphic? So it depends on your camera body and your monitor in a lot of ways. If you have a camera body like a Kinefinity Mavo Edge, those have actually built-in 0.5 and 0.67 custom D-squeeze. So with that, you can actually turn the camera body, use those custom D-squeeze, and then have your monitor oriented in the right direction, and you'll be able to preview that vertical square delivery anamorphic format. If you don't have that camera, which is an awesome camera, hopefully more cameras will add that format in their firmware in the future. But another great option is the Small HD Indy 7 and just general smart series of monitors from Small HD, which have a custom anamorphic D-squeeze. I also believe the Portkeys monitors have custom D-squeeze. I think the BM5 Mark II and Mark III have that. And you can turn your monitor but use the custom D-squeeze to set a 0.5 for Orion or 0.65 to 0.67 for Mercury, depending on what's available for those custom settings, and that should give you good monitoring support. And then in your post software, you're just going to want to rotate the image and then do the D-squeeze on that.
One more from here. Can you define God's eye flare?
Yes, thank you. So we have a question from Instagram, which is, what is God's eye flare? It's just a term that we came up with that maybe other people use, but a God's eye flare is sort of a rainbow streaky flare that can happen in a spherical or anamorphic lens. And most of the time it's caused by mechanical reflection inside the lens system. So there might be either an unpolished surface or a surface that's too polished and too shiny that's reflecting and scattering light rays, and it's sort of a refractive flare. So you can actually, the reason we call it a God's eye is that you can see it with your own human eyes, sometimes in the sun if you have long eyelashes like me. You know, you might be looking at the sun, hopefully not staring into the sun, that's bad, but just catching a little bit of rays through your eyelashes and refracting them, and you'll get little kind of twinkly rainbow refractions, and those, you know, actually can flare with your eye, which is kind of cool. So that's why we call it God's eye. You know, I don't know if that might offend some people, hopefully not, but we just saw it as a nice homage. All right, thanks everyone. Happy holidays, stay safe out there. We'll see you soon, and watch Babylon if you have time. Take care. Cheers. Thanks everybody. Wow. Good practice one.